All right, guys, you guys are still working on your alternate energy project. There's a couple things I want to talk about. Number one, no matter what alternate energy you guys chose, it's going to take resources in order to make it. This is just a map of where most of the mining takes place in order to mine the resources in order to make solar, wind, geothermal, electric cars, etc. If you look, most of them are concentrated along the mountainous regions on the western part of the continent. Australia has a bunch of them, and China has a bunch of them as well. So no matter what alternate energy you do, you're going to have to dig up resources out of the earth in order to make solar panels or wind turbines or electric cars, etc. I want you to keep that in mind. Nothing is really environmentally sustainable. Mining always creates usually water pollution, air pollution for sure, because you got to run diesel equipment in order to dig the stuff out. You got to run through an industrial process in order to refine it. There's really no way around any of that stuff. So you're always going to produce some exhaust. Now, of course, if you're burning coal or you're burning fuel oil, regular gasoline, you're putting more global warming gases in the air, but you're still going to produce some of this material. Some of the other things I wanted to talk about was some of the negatives with this material. Solar panels are great, but they take a lot of space. They don't produce much current per solar panel. Each solar panel might be, I don't know, maybe this big. That's one solar panel. That one solar panel might make enough power to go ahead and burn one light bulb. So it takes a lot of solar panels and it takes a lot of space in order to have them, to have enough to go ahead and say power a town. It's expensive to buy land. Most land is going to cost anywhere from 6 to 10 grand an acre at minimum. You know, a small town like Asheboro, you'd have to have a square mile, 640 acres at a minimum to have enough power. So it's expensive to buy the land and you need a lot of space. Wind turbines are the same thing. It takes a lot of space to have them, and you, of course you got to have wind as well, of course. So you're going to have it in windy areas, the Midwest of the United States, along the coast, some mountain areas. And these things are pretty expensive. Most wind turbines are going to be $1 to $2 million bucks. So there's definitely some negatives to this. And of course, it takes a lot of material to make some of these big wind turbines. They're 200-300 feet tall. Nuclear, probably one of the biggest things about nuclear is super expensive. You're going to run anywhere from 5 to 10 million bucks to build one. And it's going to take 10 to 15 years to get it built. There's so many regulations with it that, you know, it's a harsh. Now, the great thing about nuclear is it creates a ton of power. One nuclear power plant might cover a square mile, but it's going to make enough power to run half a Raleigh. That's a lot of power in a very small area. These things work great in an urban environment because they make enough power in a small enough area you can run these big urban centers. And since more people are moving to towns, or at least they were before the whole COVID thing, you need a lot of power in a very small area. This is actually starting to get another big look, even from Democrats in the United States. And it never did before, but it is now. Geothermal, you need a magma source near the surface of the earth in order to make it work. California's got one. Iceland is almost completely geothermal, but it's on a spread grid center. So you've got a lot of steam coming out of the ground because you've got a magma source close by, and you can turn the turbine with the steam. Works great, but only in certain areas. Hydroelectric is something similar. Obviously, you need a lot of water. We've dammed up most of the rivers we can here in the United States. Some of these third world countries that have it, it works really good if they have a lot of water. That's just water falling, turning the turbine. The big kick against electric cars used to be it's too expensive. Now they've got the price down to about 30 grand, and most cars anymore are about 30 grand. So these are starting to make more of a increase in market share. The big kick against American electric cars, you can only go 200 miles with these things before you got to fill them up. It'd be 240. Plus, you gotta have a spot to go ahead and recharge the darn things. If you just use a 110 outlet like you guys run your computer, it's gonna take about 12 hours. Yeah, well, that means you drive 200 miles, you wait all night. Drive 12 hours, wait all night. Lose. People hate that in America. They work good in the urban landscape though. Biofuel, something similar. Biofuel, you're gonna lose about 80% with heat. So in other words, biofuel, food pyramid, you're growing the plants here, and you're concentrating this in, say, this area here, to gasoline. You're only gonna transfer about 20% of that energy, at best. 10% is really more common. So you're gonna lose 80 to 90% when you go from one trophic level to the next. So you gotta grow an awful lot of product in order to make enough gasoline to go ahead and run our vehicles. Sugar cane works best because there's a lot of sugar in it. You can make do with corn or soybeans, but the transfer, you're losing a lot from one to the next. Tidal is something similar. Two things you need with tidal. You need a really high tide, Nova Scotia, 10 to 30 feet high tide twice a day. And you need an enclosed basin, where this would be the sea. And you put a dam across. Water rushes in, you close the dam, you release the water out, which turns the turbine, goes back in again the second time, you dam it up, you release it out. Natural gas is making a huge push. Natural gas, I think, is close to 30% of our electricity generation now. 10 years ago, that was down to almost 10%. It's gotten a lot cheaper. We've gotten more natural gas now due to fracking, where you drill into the shale like this black tabletop, you split it apart with high pressurized water and sand, and you extract the natural gas. Coal in America used to be close to 50% when I first started teaching this, close to 20 years ago. That's dropped to about 25% now. So it's been cut in half. Natural gas and solar have been picking up that slack. Tidal, well, not tidal, but wind as well. We haven't done much for nuclear here. China has, but we haven't. It's just too expensive. And people are scared of it anyhow. That's one of the things about nuclear. So I think this is really all we needed for now, guys. You're gonna give me half of this project tomorrow. I'll grade it to see for classwork, and then I'll give you another week and we'll finish the whole thing.